There comes a moment in life that no one warns you about. You don't announce it. You don't make a dramatic decision. You don't even realize it's happening at first. You just stop explaining yourself net because you're angry. Not because you're cold, but because one day you finally understand something that changes everything. Most people aren't listening to understand you. They're listening to see if you still belong to the version of you they're comfortable with. And when you stop trying to fit that version, something strange happens. You lose people. You lose conversations. You lose invitations. But you gain something most people never touch in their lifetime: clarity. You may have noticed this already. You speak less than you used to. You don't jump into conversations just to be seen. You no longer rush to fill silence. You no longer feel the need to prove that you're interesting, capable, or worthy of being heard. And people start reacting differently to you. Some say you've changed. Some say you've become distant. Some quietly disappear without explanation. What they don't say out loud is this: they no longer know how to control you. Here's the uncomfortable truth no one tells you. When you stop performing, you stop being predictable, and predictability is what keeps most relationships alive, not connection. Most connections aren't built on understanding. They're built on habit, on who talks more, who validates whom, who fills the silence, who adjusts, who explains. When you quietly remove yourself from that dynamic, the structure collapses, and the collapse feels personal. To the people who benefited from your effort, the Stoics understood this centuries ago. Attraction does not come from addition, not from saying more, not from being louder, not from being more impressive. Attraction comes from subtraction, from what you stop doing. You stop chasing approval. You stop filling every pause with noise. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop rescuing conversations that should have ended naturally, and suddenly, your presence carries weight. Think about it. You've seen this person before. They enter a room quietly. They don't dominate the conversation. They don't perform intelligence or humor bit when they speak. People listen, not because they said something clever, but because they don't waste words. While others speak constantly, their words dissolve into background noise. But someone who speaks less forces attention. Silence sharpens sound, and clarity sharpens presence. This is where most people get it wrong. They believe attraction comes from effort, from being more engaging, more charismatic, more interesting, so they talk more, explain more, share more, and the more they give, the less value their words carry, because anything constantly available becomes easy to ignore. The moment you stop needing attention, attention starts noticing you, not because you're manipulating, not because you learned a trick, but because you finally stopped leaking energy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." He wasn't talking about morality alone. He was talking about presence. Don't perform depth. Be grounded. Don't perform confidence. Be honest. Don't perform interest. Be present. This video isn't about tricks. It isn't about charisma. And it definitely isn't about getting people to like you. It's about 6 communication principles that quietly change how people experience you, without effort, without force, without performance. Each one removes something unnecessary. Each one brings you closer to who you already are. Before the world taught you to over-explain yourself, number 4 is the one almost everyone resists. And it's usually the moment everything shifts. If you've ever felt tired of talking without being heard, if you've ever noticed people drifting away as you became more yourself, if you've ever wondered why silence suddenly feels more powerful than words, stay, because what you're experiencing isn't loss, it's alignment. Clarity doesn't come from saying more. It begins the moment you stop making every conversation about you. That's where the first principle begins. The power of genuine curiosity. The first shift doesn't start with speaking less, it starts with listening differently. Not the kind of listening where you're polite, nodding, waiting for your turn. Not the kind where your mouth is quiet, but your mind is rehearsing what you'll say next. Real listening begins when your ego steps back, and most people never experience a think about how. Conversations usually go to me own shares something personal, a new interest, a problem, a thought they've been carrying, and almost immediately, the other person responds with themselves. I've been through that. That reminds me of when You should try what I did. They don't mean harm. They think they're connecting. But what they actually did was close the door that just opened. The Stoics knew something modern conversations forgot. Connection isn't built by showing how much you know. It's built by how deeply you're willing to stay with what someone else is saying. That's why the first principle is deceptively simple. For words, tell me more about that. Then, silence. Here's why those words matter. When someone speaks, they're not just sharing information. They're testing safety. Is it safe to continue? Will I be interrupted? Will this turn into a competition? Will I be corrected, minimized, or redirected? Most of the time, the answer is no, so people stay shallow. They give summaries instead of truths. They edit themselves in real time. But when you say, tell me more about that, and you actually mean it, something changes. They slow down. Their voice shifts. They go deeper than they planned. Not because you asked a clever question, but because you didn't take the spotlight away from them. You didn't perform interest. You offered presence, and presence is rare. Here's the part most people miss. They won't remember what you said in that conversation. They'll remember how it felt to talk to you. They'll remember that you didn't interrupt, that you didn't rush them, that you didn't turn their story into yours. They'll remember feeling seen, and that feeling stays long after words fade. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we may listen twice as much as we speak." This wasn't advice about manners. It was a warning about ego. Listening isn't passive. It's restraint. It's choosing curiosity over control. But there's an important rule here. You can't fake this. If you're not genuinely curious, don't ask. Silence is better than false engagement. People feel the difference immediately. False curiosity feels hollow. Real attention feels grounding, and when someone senses they have your full attention, they relax. Relaxed people reveal truth. Performing people reveal masks. This is why you've noticed something lately. When you stopped talking just to stay relevant, people either leaned in or drifted away. Both reactions are information. Those who lean in feel your presence. Those who drift miss your performance. And that's not loss. That's filtration. You're no longer there to impress. You're there to understand, and understanding doesn't shout. It listens. This first principle quietly changes everything. Conversations go deeper without effort. People open up faster. They share things they didn't plan to share. Not because you asked the right questions, but because you finally stopped making it about you, and once you stop needing to sound intelligent, you unlock the second principle. The one most people are afraid of. The one that instantly separates real confidence from insecurity pretending to be knowledgeable. Words. Simple, uncomfortable, liberating. I don't know. When you stop needing to sound interesting, you discover the courage to be honest. Stand. Honesty starts with 3 words. Most people avoid the strength of saying I don't know. For most people, silence is uncomfortable. But admitting ignorance, that feels dangerous. From a young age, you're taught a quiet rule. If you don't know, hide it. If you're unsure, cover it. If you hesitate, perform confidences. When someone asks your opinion on something unfamiliar, your body reacts before your mind. You improvise. You generalize. You say something that sounds right, and for a moment, it feels safe. But something subtle breaks. You felt this before. You're talking to someone. They're explaining something, but it feels hollow. Their words land softly, without weight. You can't point to what's wrong, but you sense it. They're not speaking from truth. They're speaking from fear of being exposed, and once you notice it, trust begins to erode. Now compare that to a different moment. Same question, same uncertainty. But instead of performing, the person pauses, not awkwardly, not defensively, just long enough to be honest. Then they say, I don't know. No apology, no explanation, no nervous laughter to soften it, just truth. And something unexpected happens. You relax. Because someone who is honest about what they don't know is likely honest about what they do. Their certainty now means something. They're not trying to dominate the conversation. They're not trying to protect an image. They're present. This is why false confidence repels. It's loud, but fragile. It demands agreement, because it can't tolerate doubt. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to win every conversation. It doesn't need to be right all the time. It doesn't collapse when faced with uncertainty. It simply says, this is where I stand. This is where I don't. Socrates understood this long before confidence became a performance. He said, I know that I know nothing, not as humility theater, but as clarity. Wisdom begins where pretense ends. When you start saying, I don't know, genuinely, something shifts. Conversations stop feeling like competitions. People stop posturing around you. They don't feel the need to impress or defend. Your presence removes pressure, and pressure is what keeps people shallow. You've probably noticed this already in your own life. The more you stop pretending, the more calm entered your conversations. You didn't have to prepare answers. You didn't have to be sharp or quick. You could simply be real, and real doesn't rush. There's a trap here, though. False humility is just another costume. Saying, I don't know much about that, followed by a long explanation proving you do, is still performance. The Stoic path is cleaner. If you don't know, say it. If you're curious, stay open. If you know, speak clearly, nothing more, nothing extra. This honesty creates something rare. Trust, not the kind built on persuasion, the kind built on consistency. People learn that when you speak, you're not filling space. You're sharing truth, and truth carries weight. But honesty alone isn't enough, because the moment someone shares something difficult, your instinct might still betray you. You want to help. You want to fix. You want to relieve their discomfort quickly, and that instinct often does more harm than good. Which brings us to the third principle. 3 words that save conversations from becoming quiet misunderstandings. That sounds difficult. Truth builds trust. But trust deepens only when someone feels safe. And safety doesn't come from answers. It comes from being understood. The discipline of not fixing people when someone opens up to you. They are doing something vulnerable, even if they don't show it. They're not just sharing information, they're revealing weight. Something unfinished, something unresolved, something they've been carrying longer than they admit. And almost instinctively, you rush to remove it. You offer solutions. You should try. When I went through that, I just. Have you thought about? You think you're helping. But what they hear is something else entirely. They hear, this shouldn't be that hard. You're making it bigger than it is. If you were smarter, you'd already be past this. Even when your intention is kind, your timing is violent. Most people don't share pain because they want answers. They share because they want permission to feel, without being corrected. Pain becomes heavier when it has to justify itself. This is where the third principle appears, quietly, powerfully, 3 words. That sounds difficult. No advice, no comparison, no urgency to resolve, just recognition. Those words do something rare. They don't shrink the problem. They don't compete with it. They don't rush it toward a conclusion. They sit with it. And sitting with discomfort is something most people avoid their entire lives. Watch what happens next. The other person exhales, not because their problem is solved, but because it's finally allowed to exist. They keep talking, not because you pushed them, but because you didn't interrupt their process. Here's the truth most people never learn. Understanding doesn't come from advice. It comes from being heard long enough to hear yourself. Your role isn't to fix their life. Your role is to make the space safe enough for clarity to surface. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." Most people reverse this. They are strict with others, quick to judge, quick to solve, quick to correct, and endlessly tolerant with themselves. Real strength is the opposite. Patience with others, discipline with self. When you say that sounds difficult, you're practicing restraint. You're choosing connection over control, and control is the enemy of trust. People begin to bring you real things, not surface complaints, not rehearsed stories, but the heavy ones, the ones they don't share with people who rush to fix. Because you've proven something important, you won't minimize them, you won't rush them, you won't turn their pain into your performance. You're not an expert on their life, you're a witness, and sometimes being witnessed is what allows healing to begin. If they want advice, they'll ask, and when they do, you don't offer solutions as truths, you offer experiences as options. This helped me. It might not work for you. No authority, no pressure, just respect. And respect changes how people feel around you. They feel safe. they feel seen. They feel less alone. That safety is magnetic. Not loud, not flashy, quiet, grounded, rare. But even validation has limits, because there's a discipline harder than listening, harder than honesty, harder than restraint. A discipline that determines whether your words will ever carry weight at all. It requires doing something most people fear more than being wrong. Saying nothing, the fourth principle, isn't a phrase. It's silence. And it's where everything you've learned so far either collapses or finally becomes powerful. Once people feel seen, you don't need to fill the space anymore, because silence does the work words never could. The power of silence after you stop fixing people, after you stop rushing to be helpful. There's one habit left to unlearn: talking. Just because silence feels uncomfortable. Most people confuse silence with failure. A pause appears and panic rises. They rush to fill it. Any words will do. Stories no one asked for. Opinions half-formed. Noise to avoid the discomfort of being present. And slowly, without realizing it, they train everyone around them to ignore them. Because words without intention become background sound. Silence isn't emptiness. Silence is restraint. It's the moment you choose presence over performance. And restraint is where power lives. Watch someone who is comfortable with silence. They don't rush their responses. They don't interrupt the flow. They don't explain themselves twice. When asked a question, they pause, not to create drama, but to think. And when they speak, it's one clear thought. Then they stop. No justification, no filler, no need to rescue the moment. The room adjusts to them. This is what silence does. It gives weight to words when you speak constantly. Your words compete with each other. When you speak selectively, each word lands. Silence becomes the frame that makes meaning visible. There's another effect few people notice. When you stay silent, others reveal themselves. They rush to fill the gap. They explain too much. They talk in circles, and in doing so, they show you who they are when they feel exposed. Silence removes masks. Noise hides behind them. But this only works if your silence is calm. Anxious silence makes others uneasy. Grounded silence does the opposite. It slows the room down. People breathe differently around you. They speak more honestly. They stop performing. Because you're not demanding anything from them, your presence is enough. Seneca wrote, "Silence is a lesson learned from the many sufferings of life." Those who talk constantly are often running from thought, from feeling, from themselves. But those who have endured enough learn that silence isn't empty. It's full of attention, full of clarity, full of self-possession. This is why your quiet has changed. You're not withdrawing, you're consolidating. You're no longer leaking energy through unnecessary words. And people feel it. Some are unsettled by it. Others are drawn to it. Both reactions are truth. When you master silence, people start watching you differently. They wait for your response. They lean in when you speak. They remember what you say, not because you dominate the room, but because you don't compete for it. Silence teaches people that your words are not free. They are intentional, and intention is rare. But silence alone isn't enough, because if you stay quiet without recognition, people may feel unseen. And if you recognize without boundaries, you lose yourself. Which brings us to the next shift. 3 words that acknowledge a person, not their utility. I appreciate you. Silence creates space, but space alone isn't connection. Connection begins when someone knows they matter. Seeing the person, not the function, silence creates space. But space without recognition can feel empty. After someone has spoken, after you've listened, after you've stayed present without fixing, there's one thing the human heart still waits for: to be seen, not evaluated, not praised for performance. Seen. Most of the world doesn't see people. It measures them at work, by productivity, in relationships, by usefulness, in conversations, by how entertaining they are. Slowly, almost invisibly, people begin to feel interchangeable, valued only when they provide something, and they carry that hunger everywhere. This is why the 5th principle matters. 3 simple words. I appreciate you, not thank you. Not thanks for helping. Not I appreciate what you did. Those are transactions. This is recognition. When you say, I appreciate you, you're not pointing to an action. You're pointing to character. You're saying, I see who you are. When no one is watching, I notice the consistency, not just the moment. That kind of recognition is rare, and rare things carry weight. Watch how people respond to it. They pause, not because they don't know what to say, but because they didn't expect to be seen at that level. They're used to being thanked for effort. They're not used to being recognized for who they are. This phrase doesn't work when it's scattered. I appreciate you for passing the salt. No, it becomes noise. But when used deliberately, after consistency, loyalty, presence, reliability, it lands deeply. When someone shows up again and again, when they hold space without being asked, when they stay when it would be easier to leave, and you say, I appreciate you, you give them something most people never receive. Confirmation that their being matters, even when they're not producing. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He didn't begin his days thinking about what people did for him. He reflected on who they were, on their nature, their flaws, their humanity, because to recognize someone as human, not as a role, is to offer dignity, and dignity creates bonds. That transactions never can when people feel seen by you. Something shifts. They stop performing. They stop bargaining for approval. They become loyal, not out of obligation, but out of connection, not because you're useful, because you're human with them. But there's a danger here. If you see everyone, if you recognize everyone, without limits, you disappear. Recognition without boundaries turns into self-erasure. Which brings us to the final discipline, the one that protects everything you've built so far. One word, simple, direct, uncomfortably now. Seeing people creates closeness, but without boundaries, closeness becomes loss. Which brings us to the final discipline, the quiet power of no. Recognition gives warmth, but without boundaries, warmth turns into depletion. If you never protect your time, your energy, your presence, you teach people something dangerous, that you are always available, that your limits are flexible, that your needs come last, and slowly, respect fades. This is why the final principle matters most. One word, no, not loudly, Not angrily, not with explanation, just no. Most people are terrified of it because no feels like rejection, like conflict, like being difficult. So instead, they say yes when their body already said no. They say maybe. They say later. They say yes and resent it silently, and every time they do, they betray themselves. Watch what happens to people who can't say no. Their calendar is full. Their mind is exhausted. Their life feels scattered. They give their best energy to things that don't matter and have nothing left for what does. Now watch someone who can say no. They pause. They consider. They answer honestly. No, I can't. No story. No apology. No defense. And while the other person may be surprised, they respect it because boundaries communicate value. Your yes only matters when your no is real. If you say yes to everything, your yes isn't a choice, it's a habit. But when people know you're capable of refusal, your presence becomes meaningful. When you show up, they know it's intentional. Epictetus said, first learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak. Most people say yes without understanding what it costs. Time is finite. Energy is finite. Attention is finite. Every yes to what drains you is a no to what could grow you. Even if you never said it out loud, when you begin to say no, calmly, clearly, something shifts. People stop assuming. They ask more carefully. They value your time more, and the ones who only wanted you because you were easy to access fade. That's not loss. That's alignment. These 6 principles aren't communication techniques. They're character revealed through restraint, curiosity instead of ego, honesty instead of performance, validation instead of fixing, silence instead of noise, recognition instead of transaction, boundaries instead of self-erasure. The Stoics understood this. Attraction isn't about becoming more. It's about removing what isn't true. The moment you stop performing, people start paying attention, not to what you say, but to who you are. When you say it, Stoic Havenway, if this resonated with you, it means you're no longer interested in being loud. You're interested in being real. If you want more reflections like this, quiet, grounded, honest, consider subscribing to this channel. Not for motivation, for clarity. And if you stayed until the end, thank you. Your time matters, and I don't take that lightly. Stoic Havenway. Stillness is not weakness. It is strength.